military vest. And a lot of us veterans have been trying to tell you guys for a long time, listen, it's not the men and women who are enlisted and lowly little officers in the military that are terrible people. It's the upper echelon. And I think what you guys are seeing today absolutely justifies everything that I've been talking about here on Radical and before this, the Rebellion, for years. This is what I've been trying to tell Republicans for years, people, and they don't want to listen. They would rather stick their head in the sand. They would rather not know, what. Boy, I'll tell you what, that if that's out there for you guys, man, that's some of that was loud. I apologize. But they have absolutely abused the military, from generals, ambassadors, State Department, you name it, anybody in higher echelon, really lieutenant colonel and up, minus one, who I will save for tonight. And I've been in contact with Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. I was going back and forth with him for a few days, and I was going to try to get him on the show to come in and kind of have this revelation, man. But obviously, the powers that be in the military thought that Lieutenant Colonel Scheller might have been better off sitting in a cage somewhere. For you guys that don't know who he is, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller has been, he's been making the rounds on social media. And when I say making the rounds, like on fire, making the rounds, especially, in the Marine communities. He is a lieutenant colonel, was in charge of a battalion, spoke out, and all he wanted was someone to take responsibility for the ridiculous withdrawal of Afghanistan. I know you would think, no problem. We've got this thing covered, and, it's 20 years in the making, absolute disaster. And this guy, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, calls for somebody to finally take responsibility. He comes out in a couple of videos. He says, hey, I'm resigning my commission. I'm done. And I don't know if they accepted it. I'm not sure if they accepted it or not, but I'll tell you right now, they didn't like what he was saying. They didn't like that he was questioning authority. They definitely didn't like the way he was doing it. And so they threw him on the brig on Camp Lejeune. And I'm going to talk about it here in this article. Came out a couple days ago. Members of Congress signed letter calling Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller's Lieutenant Colonel Scheller's immediate release. So the good thing is there is some traction behind this. And I think this is something to at least look at. 36 members of Congress have come out. Now, of the 400 plus of them, only 36 have come out and said, this is worth our time. This is worth our effort to get behind, because when we start imprisoning, men without, real charges for, asking for accountability with no real criminal records in his past, boy, it strikes home. So the article starts out, dozens of Congress members have demanded the immediate release of Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller after he was jailed for defying orders to stop publicity criticizing the nation's Afghanistan withdrawal. Scheller, 40, was arrested and jailed at Camp Lejeune's brig Monday for allegedly breaking 4 military laws by refusing orders to stop posting critical videos on social media. Critical, right? Critical of his superiors, of his leadership, after trying to have somebody, take responsibility, right? It's like, all right, we at least got one lieutenant colonel coming out and saying, yeah, man, somebody needs to pay. And now I'll tell you, at 40 years old as a lieutenant colonel, he's been around, man. Like, this guy's been around for a long time. I think he had 3 years left until he could retire. I imagine that's due to obviously coming in later as an officer. And man, to be that close and to throw it all down. This is what I've been waiting for. I've been begging for somebody somewhere to say something about this kind of stuff. And even when they do, they get shut down, right? Like this guy gets shut down. They're not going to report about this, a whole lot in the media until, these guys will sit before General Miley will sit before Congress, and we'll get to that too. But he was scheduled to make his first court appearance in North Carolina today, but the public, including elected officials and the media, are prohibited from attending. The court hearing has been postponed until next week. DailyMail.com has learned both the Marines and the defense agreed to delay and are working on a joint resolution, a source said. So here's the thing, is he's seeking an honorable discharge. And, to seek an honorable discharge, I think he's absolutely well within, not only his right, but I think, it's one of those things where, like, in terms of, military service, he's doing something that they don't teach, right? Like, this is not taught, to go out and, it's obviously it's frowned upon. It's largely frowned upon for a Marine to go outside of his chain of command ever. Right? You can request mass. They'll teach you about requesting mass, but that just gets you over maybe your immediate report, right? Like, that's it. Outside of that, man, you're going higher and higher and higher. And if you can't, if you're not making any progress, what other channel does he have? Thank God for the internet and social media and all these amazing things that we have now. I mean, without this kind of stuff, this story dies. This story absolutely dies. And I'm sure in some places they've thought about shutting this down and talking, to, I mean, all sorts of people shutting this thing down. And, I won't be surprised when it does get shut down.